Okay. I'm hoping that everyone can hear me all right this morning. If you could kindly put just a note in the chat that you can hear me, if at least one of you can put a yes, that would be great. Okay, thank you. All right, so today we're going to have some fun and really just start talking about some of the things that we've noticed along the way that are kind of happening on websites that we'd really like to get your help with improving. So if you have any questions as we go through the list today, please let me know. I'm more than happy to help. Most of the items should be really easy for you to walk through. I guess I didn't do my introduction, but my name is Ann Griesel. If we haven't met before, welcome. I'm glad that you're joining us today. We are presenting today from the biology IT team. That's where I'm a project manager. We have members of the team online. So if you do have questions and would like to ask them online in the chat, that's great. If you'd like to unmute your microphone and just go ahead and talk in Zoom, we are more than happy to also welcome that. If you have a question about your website and you want to share your screen and we can talk about it all together, that's also welcome. So essentially what we've noticed is that as we touch websites and kind of help you out along the way with different components, there's some things that it's been made clear to us it would just be nice to explain a little bit about. And these are really easy things. I think some of these things are items that you could improve on rather quickly and get your site even more searchable, get your content where it can be found a lot more easily, pretty quickly. So I just wanted to touch base on some of those tips and tricks today. It really is just a set of notes. So ultimately, I'm just going to minimize this because I don't like it like in my face here. All right. So really what we're going to do today is just kind of look at a notebook of different things that we've noticed, and I just kind of put them together here. So first, we'll talk a little bit about tags. We can learn what tags are, how they're used. I think it's important to see where they show up. And we're also going to have a chat towards the end about categories, and categories are a little different. And so we'll go through both of those components. And then upload sizes. So we've noticed that there's a lot of images, for example, in people profiles that are getting uploaded rather large. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about that. Accessibility, just a reminder, we're going to have a couple links we'll talk about. And we've noticed there's some white spacing, so I'm going to go over that. And then a review on content cards, and then a couple notes about footers. So I'm going to see if I can just kind of keep our notebook off to the side, and I'll go ahead and visit these links right along with you. They're the links that I went ahead and put in the chat so you can follow along and just take a look yourself as we go through. And again, you know, these, if there's a link on here, like I'm not trying to call anyone out, I'm just trying to give you some tips here. So please know that nobody's in trouble. This is just a matter of trying to teach good best practices. So let's look at tags first. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this link over here. Maybe. Okay. Maybe I won't copy the link. All right, well, I know where it is, so we're going to go there. What I'm going to do is just do a really quick search. And when you do a search on a website, you'll notice facets, and we all are pretty familiar with these facets, and I think we've used them a lot on our websites. Specifically, I'm going to talk about tags. So you can see that there's a tag facet here, and this is meant to really help your site visitors when they do a search find your content. And it's really great because these tags are items that you've created yourself, and so you really know your audience. And so when you're creating tags, when you create them, that tags that relate to your audience, this is great. It's great for them and it's great for you. Also, when folks go to Google and do a Google search for something specific, we want them to land on your Iowa State website. And so the more places that you can alert Google to the fact that you have content about a certain area, the better. And that's what tags are going to do for you. When someone does a search, you can see that obviously the search was for corn, and like the top tag here is corn, and that's okay to have that replication. I think that's good. You've got a tag for corn. I know that on this website, there's also an additional category list for corn, but you can tell that there's an awful lot of content related to corn. So when I select corn, you can see that it's selected, but I can also narrow down my search based on category or crop type. So if I wanted to go to visit something specific about plant diseases that relate to corn or a tagged corn, I can now do that. And you can see that my search is getting smaller and smaller. So I started with, over 500 items showing up on this website, and now I'm down to like around 100. And it happened really quickly, and hopefully folks will then be able to find what it is that they're looking for. And because you have tags, they may find things they didn't know they were looking for. So they may not realize that this site had information about corn and hail damage. So that's great. That's just educating your visitor and making the experience a little bit more exciting for them, because they're going to be able to see what you have. And oftentimes people visiting your site just need a little bit of assistance and a little bit of help to get what they need. And so this provides that for them. Really just reiterating that it is important to pay attention to tags. I know that as content editors, we get really busy and there's a lot going on. And so it might be a little difficult to be like, oh, I don't know what that tag should be. But it's really important to take a few minutes and just think about it for a little bit and put some tags in there. Are there any questions about tags before I move on? Okay. So the next item in our little notebook here is a comment or a little note about image sizes. So recently I noticed that there was some large images. And so you can see, for example, this is a really large image of this person. And it's a great picture, but it's really big. When you go to like your people page, we're going to, in Luggage, automatically resize images to a specific size. So you can see like, Aaron's got a nice little image that's the same size as everybody else. When everybody uploads an image, they're all going to be the same size. So it's hard to tell or know if the size of the image that you uploaded is too big or not, because we're going to automatically resize it for you, right? So the important thing here as content editors is that if you notice that someone has a really large image, that you could help them out just by resizing that. So you could download the image, resize it in like Photoshop, or you can even use Paint or Preview to resize the image to a couple hundred pixels wide, and you'll be fine. So even if you did something 300 pixels wide by whatever height it ends up being, that's fine. That's going to be perfect for a profile image size. So it doesn't have to be the exact size that we have here, but we want it to be a lot smaller than, over 2,000 pixels like this one. So just something to keep in mind. It really slows the website down when images are that large. So there are very rare instances where you need to have content that big on the site. But we do allow for some content to be large, which is why we're not denying that upload, I guess, because there are some specific instances where we may need a little bit larger or ability to upload a little bit larger size of file. So just pay attention to that, especially within the people profiles, because the people profiles are where you have a lot of content editors that probably only edit their people profiles, so they may not be as involved as you all are as content editors, and so please help them out. It's again, and I also, I really think that it might be great if you're a content editor to remind your people to do that, maybe in an email once a semester or something, and just remind them to have smaller image sizes. But during the year, if it's something that you notice, I'd recommend that you just change it for them. Just stealthily behind the scenes, just change it for them, make it nicer, because chances are you're going to be able to do it a lot faster than they are. There's not going to be the back and forth in communication. You're going to eventually or essentially save time for something like that, rather than, contacting each individual person to change their own size of their picture and that kind of thing. Accessibility. Let's talk about accessibility for a little bit. So, oh, and just to mention, I noticed that Sarah just put a link in there for you, so that's awesome. So if you'd like to check out that free image resizer, that'd be super. Thank you, Sarah. That's great. Accessibility. I just wanted to point folks out to, I'm not sure why that, there we go. Hopefully I can copy, there we go, to our accessibility page. Luggage is based on accessibility. As you know, we're born accessible. Many of you participated in a recent pilot that we had for the Site Improve software. And if you did participate in that, today is the last day that Site Improve will be available. So if you wanted to get in there and take a look, I think it's going to be shut down today if it hasn't already. But it might, if it's still open and you want to get something out of there, please do that. It went wildly successful as far as the participants that engaged in that pilot. So thank you all very much for that. It was great. And I'm very happy that the tool ended up working out for a lot of people. We're just hoping that it will move along and maybe might be something that the university could potentially purchase. And so we're just hoping, fingers crossed for that. In the meantime, there's a lot that you can do for accessibility, and there's a lot that we as developers here in the biology IT team are doing for you as well. So I just wanted to point that out. There is an alt text box when you upload images, so please remember to do that, to put in your alternate text. Recently, I've learned that it's good to put a period at the end of alt text, so you could remember to do that. The text just needs to be succinct and descriptive. Think of it in terms of providing someone who may not have the ability to see the image visually, so to provide them the same experience as someone who can see the image visually. So that's the idea behind it. And the period at the end, my understanding is that in certain technology that's used to surf the internet, it creates a pause. So for example, in a screen reader, it'll create a pause and kind of halt for a second. That allows the person navigating that screen reader type software the ability to understand the difference between the different types of content that they're being given. So just having that breath in the middle will help them say, okay, that's what I want, and be able to click on it, or understand that without just going straight into the next text that's on the page. I wanted to look at a couple other things. Be sure that you have clear contrast in your colors. We have noted a little bit about that here. And also wanted to point out again the colors page. So here are the Iowa State primary colors and secondary colors, and then you can see the colors that pass. When you use items like our content cards, which we'll talk about in a little bit, we are choosing colors that are of the proper contrast. So just a reminder that we're being cognizant of those things and trying to help you out in that way. Some things that the biology IT team is doing is making sure that your site is navigable through a keyboard nav. So that's a good accessibility component. We want to make sure that there's meaningful content. So we've provided you the ability to format your headings, and we've talked about this a lot. And so please use the heading 2 and 3. This is going to send your content to Google and make it of a higher priority. And it's also going to assist with those that have screen readers, again, to be able to filter your content more effectively and efficiently. And chances are, if they can do that, they're going to stay on your site. And we want prospective students to be able to come to Iowa State, and we want them to be able to see what we can offer them here at Iowa State. And so by doing that, you're going to be able to help in that endeavor. We have multiple ways to find pages. So essentially, when you create a page in Luggage, it can be found, obviously we talked about by keyboard, but you can also find it through categories, tags, and the menu. You can essentially search content by the content type that it is, so news or event. This means that not all of your content has to be in the main menu, and that's a plus in terms of accessibility, that your site is searchable and folks can find the information that they need. You can imagine that if you're navigating a site based on like a screen reader, for example, that it would be a lot more efficient to be able to see content by type. Like if it was a news item that they were interested in, or a page that they knew it was, or an event that has happened, that's just going to help people find the content faster. We also know that people, when they come to a site, we all think about content differently, which means that there's a different mental pathway that we all have kind of in our head as far as maybe where the content would be. So by having that content available in many ways and in many areas is going to help so that more people that come to the site can get to the content in the way that they think of the content themselves. And that's excellent. And that's going to be another good way to make your site accessible. All right. There is the ability to resize text in Luggage. So if you just hold Command and tap plus or Control, depending if you're on Windows or a Mac, the text size is going to increase or decrease. So that's something that you can try out as well. All right. Are there any questions so far on what we've discussed in terms of accessibility or upload sizes? Okay. I'm going to keep trucking along. White space. So I don't have a specific example of this right now, but we've noticed that when maybe, I don't know if it's just when folks are adding content, there's a lot of returns at the bottom of the page. So for example, if you had to copy and paste text over or something and there was a lot of returns after the last paragraph, maybe something was deleted, but then the returns weren't deleted. We're noticing that there's white space at the bottom. I've seen that a lot. I usually will just fix it if I see it, but please make sure that when you move content or add content that you check the bottom of your content. Also, sometimes there's a lot of white space between paragraphs. So we've also noticed that where there might be a paragraph, I don't even know how to explain it, but just between paragraphs, there's a lot of white space. So really what that does is cause a lot more of additional scrolling than is necessary on your pages. So please be sure to go through and do that. We saw recently a section where that was happening on someone's particular content type, and so we asked I think one of our developers or a student went in and fixed that. So we'll try to do what we can, but we're not able to see all of your content on all the sites. So if you notice it yourself, please fix that. Content cards. So content cards have come along lately quite well. I feel like you all are doing an excellent job of using content cards. And in fact, it's pretty easy to find. If you click on the luggage tutorials, you can click on content cards and see how to edit them. We are in the process of migrating content into a content card. If it looks like it would be a good place or a good area to do that on sites. So if you notice that maybe a particular block that you used to not be able to edit and now you can, that was us. We're just trying to make it more editable for you. I think in most cases I've been pretty consistent in contacting the content editors to let them know, like, hey, we're updating your site to content cards where we see we can. Some sites there's really not a need for it, others there is. So you could see, you know, an example of a site using content cards would be the software engineering website. They've got a lot of places where they use these cards. So for example, you can see it on the home page in these 3 blocks. But if you go to their academics page, these are all content cards. Down here's content cards. We've got content cards at the bottom. It's just a nice way to make your site a little bit more engaging, especially for incoming students or prospective students. So if you're interested in moving some of your content into a content card and you'd like to try it, please let us know. We're more than happy to help. So you can just email websupport@iastate.edu and let me know what you're thinking, and we can go from there. Footers. Just wanted to give a quick reminder to folks that in the footer, you'll want to, like, if you go to this homepage, for example, on software engineering, you can see that they've got content cards down here because there's several departments that they work with and a couple colleges. So this is, in this particular case, they've decided like this is how they want to promote it. However, we can put your colleges in the footer. So you can see here on the biology IT luggage site that we've got College of Ag and Life Sciences and College of Liberal Arts and Sciences at the bottom. If you don't have the colleges that are affiliated with your site in the footer and you'd like them in the footer, please let us know. Personally, I feel like that's a really strong plus, and I would say that's a usability thing, especially for an incoming student. Learning about all of the different components that you have, or I'm sorry, all the different degrees or majors that are available here at Iowa State. It gets, as you search and you start going down the rabbit hole of the different things that you could do at Iowa State, it quickly becomes challenging to recall which college that department or degree is in if you're not familiar with Iowa State and you're not sure exactly where everything falls. So I personally feel like that's a strong thing that you can do by having those colleges listed in your footer. Additionally, most folks are doing this already, but if you know that the campus addresses are now required to have the street address as well as the building address. So if you could please remember to put that in your footer. And again, you can't put that in the footer yourself. I hope someday you'll be able to do that, but right now our team will do that. So please email me what that should be and we'll get it updated quickly for you. The site index and sitemap. I've had some people request that those be removed. It's a rarity, but it's happened. I really encourage you all to keep the site index and sitemap. And this, again, is an accessibility reason. So it makes your site a lot more accessible when you have a site index and sitemap. It also helps SEO, so it helps people find your content Google pays attention to this. Again, it's another thing. So I'd recommend that you also have that in your footer. All of our footers with the new theme also have the policies listed here and the copyright. So again, that's a requirement to have those. It's a strong recommendation, and not just from our team, but from Iowa State in general, from Central Campus. There's a lot of groups that have kind of come together and started talking about these things. And so we really want to make sure that we've got the non-discrimination policy and the privacy policy, and of course the digital access and accessibility link there. So, all right. Is there anything that you have questions on in that regard? Does anybody have a question about footers or content cards? All right. So one more thing that I was just going to mention this morning are categories. And so here's a little description for you to help explain a little bit about categories. You can see, I'm just going to read this. So it's something that I say often, and I say a lot, but categories really are a way to explain what it is that you do. So you want to make sure that you kind of ask yourself that question and then think of an answer in terms of your audience. So for example, if you have a department site, what are the degrees that your department teaches, right? What's the research that happens in your department? What is the research that you do? What are the degrees that you offer? What are those types of components? Essentially, they should be categories that you foresee having multiple types of content that could link to them. The second paragraph talks about the fact that you want to pay attention to, I'll talk about the second part first, that you don't want to have a category, for example, that might only have one page attached to it. Now, if that's a really excellent page and it has a lot of information, then that might be okay. But really, categories should be a little bit more overarching. So maybe there's an event that will link to that category. Maybe there's a news item that would link to that category. Maybe there's a project that would link to that category. Maybe there's a page somewhere that would link to that category. If that's the case, that's what we want. So if you think that you could potentially in the future have a news item linking to that category or an event, for example, then it's a good category to have for sure. Also, when you create categories, it's also important to know the different types of content that you'll be adding to the site. So for example, when you go to add content to your luggage website, you can add content of different types. So for example, you can add content of type news, of type event, of type project. So what you really want to avoid is having a category that's labeled project, for example. So you don't want to have a category term called project because you already have the ability to add content of the type project. And as we saw on crops, let's just revisit this for a quick second. And we did our little search. Oops, I didn't type that correctly. You can see down here that on this website, there's various types of content that can be searched. So you really don't need to have like event, for example, listed under category, because there's already a facet for the type of event that someone can filter content by. Because when you add it as an event, you can filter it as an event. So just to keep those things in mind when you're creating categories. Also, you can have subcategories. So you see here how there's two subcategories underneath soils, soil management and soil fertility. So please also be aware of that and don't be afraid to use the subcategories as well. All right. And that's really all I had in terms of sort of this potpourri of items that have come up lately. And I just put them in a note and decided that it was maybe time to talk about some of these areas. If there's a particular item that you're interested in learning more about, or some area in editing, please let me know so that we can add them to future webinars. And I think that for the next webinar next month, it may be one that you'll want to tune into. I'd like to talk a lot about, I'm hoping to talk more about web forms. So hopefully in that one, we can have some information and be able to relay that to you. I've got a meeting at the end of April that should give me some more information on what to pay attention to for web forms, and I'd like to pass that along. So we can plan on that at least for next month. Other than that, I think that's all I had, but I want to give you a minute. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat. If you have a site page that you want to talk about, let's talk about it. This really is time for you. I'm available. Seems like everybody is a little bashful. Maybe we need to do this in a room sometime in person once, just to have a meeting where we're not scared to share. I feel like people might be scared to share, but please don't be. Ask away. All right. Well, please use the web support email that Sarah kindly put in the chat. If you do have questions, I certainly will follow up with you and we can talk about those things. I hope you all have a great weekend and we will see you in May. So thank you all for being here.